On the night when a 17-year-old girl suffocated in smoke in a small house on the outskirts of Tulsa, fire captain on duty Michael Harper already knew that it was his signature at the bottom of the inspection report that said, "Alarm system operational." He was not a movie hero, but an ordinary American firefighter, 42 years old, who kept taking extra shifts, drove an old pickup truck, and drank coffee from a plastic cup on his way to work. But one day, he chose convenience over honesty and saved time where he should not have. Now he was afraid not so much of losing his badge and his job as of finally destroying the trust of his daughter and of the whole neighborhood that saw him as the man who had sworn to protect them. And in just a few days, he would have to step up to the microphone at a city council hearing and either repeat the official line or say out loud that the fire had not killed them by accident. His cowardice had helped it. Michael had grown up in Oklahoma, in a small town north of Tulsa, in a house with a porch where the flag hung all year round, and his father, after every shift at the plant, sat down in front of the television to watch the news, grumbling about the politicians and repeating the same line, "A man is responsible for whatever is under his hands." As a kid, Michael had worn old sneakers and carried a school backpack with the local team logo instead of trendy gear, but he got used to the idea that respect around here was earned not by looks, but by who got up at 5 in the morning, rolled the trash can out to the road, and went to work without complaining. After school, he did not go to college. He went to the fire academy because he liked the simple idea of being the one who drove in while everyone else was running out. Over 20 years in the firehouse on the edge of Tulsa, he had seen everything: night calls in rain and heat, false alarms at supermarkets, teenagers pulled out of wrecked cars, old people on oxygen. He had to calm down until the ambulance arrived. He got used to the smell of burning, to cheap coffee in plastic cups, to takeout pizza eaten right by the bay doors between calls, and to the fact that he often watched his daughter's school games only with half an eye, standing off to the side at the stadium in uniform because he was on duty. He thought that he was paying the fair price for his work, missed dinners, fatigue, and constant anxiety for his crew. The mistake happened on an ordinary hot fall day when he came to do a scheduled inspection of an old 2-story building converted into low-rent apartments. The owner rushed him, talking about tenants, insurance, and how, "If you don't sign now, I'll have a problem with the city." Michael saw that the alarm system was acting up, that one indicator light flickered and another stayed dead. But in his head, numbers flashed. A week without days off, 2 night shifts in a row, a departmental report demanding that he close out the inspection plan. He signed, telling himself he would stop by again later when things were less crazy. He never stopped by. The girl who died in the fire went to the same school as his daughter Emily. They ran together on the stadium track in the mornings. On the evening the building caught fire, Emily had been texting that girl, watching panicked posts on social media, and she already knew the address when the sirens tore through the neighborhood. She also knew that her father had signed that report because she had overheard him mention it on the phone a couple of times. At that moment, the line between his work and his home broke. His professional mistake entered the house along with the smoke. The night of the fire caught him on duty. The alarm came in late because the house system had not gone off in time, and during the first minutes, he still hoped they would make it. When they roared up in the old red fire truck, neighbors were already kicking in the doors, and a black plume of smoke was rising above the small store by the road. He and 2 guys ran into the stairwell in masks, the wind shoving smoke back into the windows, people shouting that the girl is upstairs, someone filming everything on a phone. "Third floor, left side," one of the neighbors shouted to him, coughing. "She's there, she called her mom." He knew the floor plan because he had seen it in the report he had signed, and that made his heart clench even harder. In the smoke, feeling the heat through his gear, he moved forward, counting steps, hearing the crackle of melting plastic and wood. At some point, a section of the ceiling crashed down above them, sparks raining onto the stairs, and the youngest guy in his crew yelled with pure panic in his voice that it was coming down and that they had to fall back. For a second, Michael froze. Everything flashed through his mind: the reports, the plans, his exhausted men, their wives, their kids on the school stadium. He yanked the kid back sharply, ordered them to retreat to the mid-landing because we don't lose our own, and they stumbled out onto the platform, coughing and wiping their mask lenses. By the time they were ready to push up again, thick black smoke was already pouring from above, and someone shouted that it was too late. After that, there was the body bag, black and rubbery, a local TV camera across from him, and the girl's mother who had torn her fingernails trying to break through the cordon. Michael stood in the smoke with a dirty face wet from both tears and soot, and suddenly understood very clearly: if the alarm system had worked, if it had been repaired, they would have arrived sooner. She would have gotten out. He saw his own signature at the bottom of the inspection report just as clearly as the body under the zipper. He felt not only grief, he felt a specific, heavy, crushing shame. The next morning he sat in the kitchen, which smelled of cheap drip coffee and dried ketchup left on a plate after yesterday's burgers, and waited for Emily to come downstairs. On the table lay a pile of mail: the mortgage bill, the insurance bill, some flyer from the store by the road, and his phone that kept buzzing with messages. When his daughter walked in, wearing an old hoodie with the school team logo and messy hair, he knew from her face that she had already seen the news. "Dad, was it that house?" she asked without greeting. Her voice sounded flat, as if from a distance. "What house?" he asked automatically, reaching for his mug, but the coffee had already gone cold, bitter and watery. "The one you signed off on," she said, and looked straight at him. "The one where you said everything was fine. Did you know something was wrong there?" He swallowed and felt everything pinch inside. He could lie. He could talk about how tired he was, about how all these systems are old, it's like this everywhere. But he could not find those words. "I should have checked better," he said. "I thought I'd swing back by—" "You thought," she cut him off, "and she burned. She called her mom. You get that?" Her voice broke, and she turned to the sink so he would not see her tears. Everyone at school already knows that was a certified safe building. In that moment he realized that he feared not just losing his job or facing a commission. He was afraid of becoming, in his own daughter's eyes, a man you could not rely on. He felt ashamed to be an adult who had chosen convenience, and that feeling was worse than smoke. A day later, at the firehouse, the department chief, the city safety inspector, and the city attorney gathered. They sat in the briefing room, where faded photos of old crews and certificates hung on the walls, and a box of donuts and paper cups of coffee stood untouched on the table. Michael sat across from them in uniform, his badge now feeling too heavy. "Michael, we need to understand how we're going to present this," the department chief said, a man with a tired face and a perfect part in his hair. "The media are already tearing us apart. They want someone to blame." "I am to blame," Michael said, surprised at how steady his voice sounded. "I saw the system was messed up. I didn't push for a repair. I signed off." "We know that," the city inspector answered dryly, clicking his pen. "The question is what we tell the city and the commission. The facts are: old building, owner ignored regulations, tenants ignored alarms. There's a chain of failures here. And you're one link in that chain," the attorney added quietly, smoothing out his papers. "At the city council hearing, it's important that we show systemic measures, not a public self-sacrifice." "So you want me to say it was just an accident?" Michael asked, feeling a familiar irritation rising in him. "That no one is really guilty?" "We want you to stick to the agreed version," the chief said. "You're a good officer. You've carried this district on your back for years with no budget and lousy equipment. It is not in anyone's interest to reduce this to one signature. You understand that if you start dramatizing this, we might lose funding, might have this station shut down. Then who is going to respond to calls?" The words funding and shut down hit hard. Michael thought about his guys, about the old truck, about the closest station being 10 miles away. If theirs was closed, the neighborhood would be almost unprotected. He sat there thinking, was he hiding behind the system like a shield? Could honesty cost future lives? Or was honesty exactly what would save them? He understood that his real dilemma was not about how he would look, but about who he would be for this city. A man who covered up his mistake with numbers, or a man who admitted it and tried to fix it. He walked out of that office with the feeling that what lay ahead was not just a hearing, but a trial of his own character. A couple of days later, he drove to the burned-out building. Flowers, stuffed animals, and photos of the girl lay there, surrounded by plastic cups with candles. Her mother stood by the charred wall in a cheap jacket, clutching paper napkins grabbed from the nearest fast food place, using them as tissues. A local TV reporter hovered nearby with a microphone, waiting for tears and sharp quotes. "Mrs. Ramirez," Michael said quietly, taking off his cap, I am very sorry." She looked at him as if she were seeing him for the first time, and only now matching the face from the news to the man standing in front of her. "Are you the one who signed the paper that everything was safe there?" she asked. Her voice was shaking, but not from hysteria, from tired, heavy anger. "Yes," he said without looking away, "I did that." The reporter immediately raised his microphone closer, but what Michael said next was not for the camera. "She died in smoke," the woman said. "She called me, told me the alarm was going off again, that everyone kept turning it off because it went crazy all the time. I told her that if it had been inspected, then it was fine. I lied to her because I trusted you." Michael felt something tear inside. He could talk about how the tenants had disabled the alarms themselves, how the owner had refused to pay for repairs. But in those words, "I lied to her because I trusted you," there was everything, the trust he had taken and dropped. "I am guilty," he said. I did not do what I should have done, and I will say that at the hearing." The woman only nodded, turned back, and stared at her daughter's photo like at a sacred icon. For him, this moment became a point of no return. He understood that the only way to have even minimal respect for himself was to tell the truth, even if it tore his life apart. That evening, out of habit, he drove by the school stadium. Practice was underway under the floodlights. Teenagers in green and white uniforms ran on the field. Someone chewed pizza on the bleachers. The air smelled of chicken wings from the nearby snack stand. He parked his old pickup at the edge of the lot and got out, hoping just to watch Emily run. But when she saw him by the fence, her face tightened. "So you really came here?" she asked, walking over, but stopping short of him. Her friends stood a little way off, glancing over. The news was no doubt still playing on their phones. "I just wanted to see you," he began. "Everybody knows who you are," she cut him off. "They watch the news. Some parents say you should go to jail. Do you get what it is like to stand in the locker room and listen to them talk about your father?" I'm going to tell them the truth at the hearing," he said. "I'm not going to hide behind—" "It's too late," she said. "Too late for Lucia. For me? I don't know." She looked at him like he was a stranger. "If you stand up there and start talking about circumstances and the system again, don't bother coming home." Those words cut deeper than any formal charge. He felt not only fear, but also a strange clarity. If he went to that microphone and spoke pre-approved phrases, he would lose her completely. He left the stadium, feeling the gravel crunch under his boots, and realized that, for him, the outcome of the hearing now mattered not only because of his job, his family and the remnants of his self-respect were on the line. The night before the city council meeting, he sat at the kitchen table again. The house was quiet, the clock ticked, and the occasional headlights of cars on the quiet street flashed in the window. Papers lay on the table, the official incident report, a lawyer-written speech the city had sent him, and his own scribbled notes. Next to them, his coffee cooled in a mug with the firehouse logo, and his pickup keys lay nearby, cold to the touch. He tried to read the official text: "Unforeseen development of the fire, aging building stock, critically short response time from the residents." Every phrase sounded like an attempt to cut his role out of the story, as if his signature had never been there. He took a blank sheet and started writing what had actually happened. I saw that the system did not work properly. I was tired. I did not want to stay longer. I chose paperwork over a real check. He thought about his night shifts, about how he slept in uniform on a half-folded couch in the rec room, ready to jump up when the alarm rang, how he drove a neighbor to the laundromat on his way to the station, how he paid for someone's breakfast at the roadside diner because they could not. All of that was true. He really had served people for many years. But right beside that stood another truth. One moment when he decided, "It will be fine," had cost a life. Did a hero have the right to such weakness? Probably he did, because he was not a hero, but a person. But a person was obligated to answer for the consequences. By morning he knew he would not read someone else's text. He folded his own pages and put them in his pocket, turned off the light, and went upstairs to the bedroom where Emily was sleeping quietly, her sneakers by the door and her backpack, with the team logo hanging on the chair. He paused for a second and thought, all these ordinary things were worth more than any badge. The city council hearing took place in a typical hall, rows of plastic chairs, a flag in the corner, nameplates along the long table where the council members sat, cameras from local stations behind them. In the front row, the neighborhood residents gathered, some holding printed photos of the burned building, others holding signs with questions. On one of the chairs, Emily sat with her arms crossed and friends at her sides. In another row, he spotted Mrs. Ramirez clutching a crumpled fast food bag, as if she simply had no idea what else to do with her hands. The council chair gave the floor to the department chief, who talked about statistics, workload, and the aging housing stock. Then they called Michael's name, and he stepped up to the microphone. In his hand was the folded official text. Lieutenant Harper, one of the council members, said, "Please briefly outline your view of the incident." He looked at the sheet, read the first line, and realized he could not go on. The paper trembled in his fingers, and he put it down on the lectern. "I am not going to read the prepared statement," he said. His voice cracked at first, but quickly grew firm. "I'll tell you how it really was." People shifted in their seats, cameras swung toward him. "I've been working at our fire station for 20 years, he said. "I've responded to hundreds of calls. I've eaten cold pizza between runs, slept 2 hours on an old couch, and then ran back to the truck when the alarm went off. I've seen kids we've pulled from the fire and old folks whose hands we held while waiting for the ambulance. I'm not complaining. I chose this. I was proud to serve this neighborhood." He paused, clearly seeing not only the faces in the room but also his kitchen, the stadium, the store by the road. "The day I inspected the building on the corner of 30th and Lindsay, I was tired," he said. "I'd had a week with no days off. I had reports I needed to close. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough equipment. The owner rushed me. The alarm system in that building was glitching even then. I saw it. And instead of staying longer, calling in a specialist, demanding repairs, I signed the form and told myself I'd come back later. I didn't." The room went very still. Only the cameras kept clicking. "When the building caught fire," he said, "we got there as fast as we could. My guys risked their lives. But the alarm did not go off on time. People did not wake up on time. The girl, Lucia Ramirez, suffocated in that smoke. She was texting her mom while my daughter was texting her, and I still see my signature on the report that says that system was fine." He felt his throat tighten but forced himself to continue. "A lot of people here are talking about the system," he said. "Yes, the building was old. Yes, the owner cut corners. Yes, the tenants kept turning the alarm off because it went off too often. But if all we ever say is the system, then we're hiding real people behind those words. I am one of those people. I made a mistake. And my mistake cost a life." He turned toward the council members. "I am not asking you to look the other way," he said. "If you decide to strip my rank, I'll accept that. If you decide to refer this for prosecution, I'll accept that too. But I am asking for something else. Stop driving us to meet quotas just for the numbers. Give us the ability to do inspections the way they are supposed to be done, not just on paper. We must have the authority to shut down buildings like that, even if it is inconvenient for someone. And I am ready to be publicly accountable for every report I sign from now on, if I get the chance to work differently." He looked into the audience and found Emily's eyes. There was still a lot of hurt in them, but for the first time in days, he saw not only accusation, but a question. Is he being truthful right now? For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to admit out loud. "For years I told myself I was serving people," he said. "But that day I was serving my own convenience and the numbers in a report. That does not make me a monster, but it does make me guilty. And I want our neighborhood to understand. Calling someone a hero does not mean he can get away with anything. It means he should be the first to admit his mistakes." When he finished, the room stayed silent for a couple of seconds. Then someone started clapping, hesitant at first, but the applause grew louder. It was not a standing ovation. It felt more like a heavy, respectful acknowledgement that something real had just been said. Mrs. Ramirez did not smile, but she stood up and nodded to him. That was enough for him because he knew it would not bring her daughter back, but it might save someone else's. Early the next morning he was back at the kitchen table. Outside, another ordinary suburban American day was starting. The school bus stopped at the neighbor's house. A dog barked at the mailman. The parking lot at the store by the road already had its lights on. The coffee maker sat on the table next to two ceramic mugs. One held his black coffee, already starting to cool. The other held cocoa he had poured out of habit, without even knowing if Emily would join him. By the door, as always, her sneakers stood where she had left them, and on the chair hung her backpack with the team logo. Emily came down quietly, her phone in her hand. She sat at the table and glanced at the second mug. "Did you tell them everything?" she asked. "I told them more than I wanted to," he answered, "and probably less than I should have, but I did not lie." She nodded, took the mug, sipped, and grimaced at how sweet the cocoa was. "Everyone at school is talking about it," she said. "Some say you're just trying to save face. Others say not every grown-up could stand up like that and admit it." He waited for her verdict. "I'm still mad," she said honestly. "At you, for Lucia, for you cutting corners that day. But—" She looked at him, and her voice finally had those small, warm home notes again. "It's easier when you don't hide." He felt the tension in his shoulders ease just a little. They sat at the simple kitchen table with cheap coffee and the usual stack of mail, the same old bills and advertising flyers. The television in the living room murmured in the background with news about another political fight in Washington, but in this kitchen things were a little quieter than the day before. His confession had not erased the past and had not resurrected the dead girl. It had not turned him into a flawless hero people could hold up as an example without reservations. But it had made him an adult who no longer hid behind his badge, his paperwork, or the word system, and who finally accepted a simple, heavy duty, to be honest with the people who live next to him, who trust him, and who leave their kids' sneakers at the door every morning, counting on the adults to finish their work all the way.